All right, so it's time for me to share how transformational YouTube has been in these last 12 months that has just completely melted the old me away, has put me in a category of where I'm like sometimes looking at myself in the mirror, I'm like, who are you? Like, and what are you doing? Like, all the times and years I've heard just pose, put yourself out there, build content, create your own platform. Like, I'm doing it and it feels completely out of body, but it's actually one of the best feelings of my life. It has transformed me to be a person I didn't know I was capable of. And I'm not going to lie to you to say it also has been extremely difficult because when I said melt away, you're talking about heat and pressure and just this like tearing sometimes nights of where I'm like, what am I doing? I can't go to sleep. Or I've had the nights of where I couldn't go to sleep because I was so happy with the content and what it did because you get caught up in the algorithm and the likes and the views and the comments, but when they don't come, when they don't show up, you're like, am I doing something wrong? It made me question how good I was. I say I'm this consultant or I'm this strategist. I run this agency, but how good am I if I'm not able to produce results? How good am I if I'm posting and people are not responding? How good am I if my call to actions, my CTA is not creating any new clients for me? This was a very big deal in the very beginning, and especially when I had help. I had an intern that said, Nathan, let's go, let's do it. And this is how you should show up. This is how you go about it. And I was like, okay, let's do it. Let's knock it out. And we looked at all these videos and we tried all these hacks and it wasn't working like I thought it was. And even putting out ads, and ads are like immediately get you the views and everything else. But when you started to, but it's funny because when you start to learn that that's not the way to get monetized, then you be like, oh, I need to stop doing ads. It's like, oh, shoot, this is a whole lot more difficult, and I had to really start paying attention where I would scan through things or skip things or put them into AI, but like I was like, no, I had to watch them. And so what I started to do was start to watch all my videos because I started to do YouTube for my podcast when I first started doing it on social entrepreneurship, and I was talking about nonprofit stuff. And I should say, man, I started YouTube years ago when I first started the company, but then I deleted videos and I should have just kept them, but I just didn't want them out there because I didn't know what to expect. I didn't want to put myself out there and be judged. So I started to do this again. And when I started to do it, I started to watch all my videos from my first episodes of the podcast of me being so cringy. It was hard to watch. I'm like, I literally cannot believe I look like this. I literally cannot believe I sounded like this. And I was not who I thought I was, but I would record these videos and I would put them up there and not ever watch them. I'm like, Nathan, like, why would you do that? I'm like thinking to myself now, like, why would you do, like, why would you do that? You look like an idiot. And it's interesting because, if you cook something, you would eat it. If you bought a car, you would drive it. If you got an outfit, you would wear it. Like, why would you not watch a video that you produced? And it was frustrating. So when I first started to go through this with me and my intern, we were putting out videos and we were getting some traction. I put out an ad, got some traction, but then I was like, I'm not getting the results that I wanted. And I wasn't getting the results. It wasn't working. It didn't happen like I thought I was going to. So I got discouraged. So that's when I started to watch my own videos. And I was like, oh, shoot, like, told my intern, I was like, hey, man, look, we need to put a pause on this. I need to hit the unlisted on my videos because they weren't good. They just weren't good at all. And here I am, I'm blaming the algorithm, but I was like, I was putting out trash videos. Like these videos, they have value in it, but you really had to be patient There was this one time I put a video out about when my mom died and how she had kidney failure. And when my mom came out here to live, I remember she was hesitant about not coming out here because she knew she had this, but she didn't share with my sister and I. And she was like, I found my people. And I think she was really passionate about putting forth work because she's a nurse. And man, my mom did some crazy stuff, breaking all the rules, all the things you shouldn't do in the medical field, especially when you want to get healed and get some solutions for your problem. My mom did the opposite. So when she did find someone, she was really happy and was focused on getting what she needed to get done. But when she moved out here, she couldn't find her people because it took her some time to do that. And when I was talking about it in my story or my video, I had it in my comments, and the guy was like, some people just cannot, he said, child, some people cannot tell a story. And I was like, oh, my bad. I'm like, I obviously got to redo it. But I was having a really difficult time with telling the story without getting emotional about it. And I thought I was a pretty good speaker, right? And I am, but I am a great, phenomenal speaker in person, but this has nothing to do with in person. I realized that my communication skills were not phenomenal. They were not as great as I thought. And I had to eat some humble pie, like the whole pie, like eat the whole bakery of humble pie because I didn't realize that I was putting out garbage. And people said, like, don't be so hard on yourself. I'm like, no, because how are you going to put something out there and not be good? And so I had to like really rethink a lot of these things. At that time, my girl at the time, she was like, you should come when you come to Kenya, you should come and vlog. I'm like, oh, okay. And if you watch my videos, you're gonna see like my face is all broken out. And I'll talk about this in other videos because I have a sleep machine, but in my sleep machine, it was I was stressed and I was completely stressed. I was breaking out. But I'm like, let me just do this. Long story short, because I already talked about this in other videos. It was a great moment for me not to just video on the storytelling path, right? Because I needed help with that. It was great for the fact that I started to piece together what were the important elements of telling the story. What was important about putting together a video? But let me rephrase this: putting a video together that somebody's gonna watch. Because even when you put out a video, like think about it, not everyone watches their stuff. They just unless it's like really short and sweet and it's simple, then they will put it out there, but they're not going to put it out there if it's not going to be entertaining, especially when it's supposed to be under the entertainment category. So that was what I needed to when I came back to say, okay, this is the game plan, this is the strategy. But I no longer have my intern, but also I was now ready to start helping my clients with this. And so I got one client, and that one client was like, okay, well, let's see what we can do. And throughout this time, we were creating videos, and as we were creating videos, I was creating more videos. I was doing golfing. You see on my golfing trip, I just started to do more and more and more. And when I started to realize that there is a process, and the biggest part of that process was learning that it has nothing to do with what I wanted to show. It had nothing to do what I thought was important. It was absolutely nothing about what I viewed entertaining. It was all about the viewer. And I started to get one of my channels that I made into shorts, because that was a whole controversy that I learned that shorts are different than long form, and long is different than which the long form is just videos when you upload them. And look, I was going through understanding that when you upload them, you just don't upload them from your computer. And if you do it, you got to change the name. There's SEO to shorts. You do it from the YouTube app on your phone. And there's ways that you have to do it to ensure that people are going to see it, the times. Like I was watching all types of videos from experts, and it's funny, some experts and creators have a channel that only has like 5 videos on them. They were like, oh, I have other channels, and I'm like, oh, you can have multiple channels. And I'm just like, oh, this is crazy. But then I had to stop taking all this advice and just figure it out for myself. So what I started to learn was, when I was creating these things, was like, this video is not about me. This is for my customers. This is for my clients. And that's who I was making it for, my customers, my clients. And then it was a huge epiphany of where it's like, Nathan, like, stop making it for your clients and customers. Just make it for everybody. Make it for anybody that wants to watch it. Make it for anybody that wants to get value on why they clicked that thumbnail, why they clicked on the title to say, this looks interesting, I should watch it. And that was around like at the end of my golf trip. And it was taking me so much time to edit those videos and then continue to get back on the run of my regular producing content of my podcast and getting others. And then for my clients. And then I had an event coming up, and I can just quickly fast forward through that. Was a very difficult time because I still had to mourn my mom. And my kids were like driving me crazy in a lot of ways. My girls that were living with me, I should say them because it was them, not my other kids, since I have a handful of kids. And when I went viral on one of our channels with the kids, it proved my point. But then that also helped me understand that I really need to not listen to anyone. I just need to follow my gut. And so that got me encouraged, because as I was going into the new school year, I had an event coming up. Like I did a lot of work with the golf videos, and with the last 6 months from Kenya, I had those events and that travel and that experience to say, okay, this is what we need to produce. So now I was motivated. And my kids, my girls, they were showing me how silly and just carefree you need it to be. And so I started loosening it up. So here's why I say, like, I was saying be you, and I was realizing, like, I would have be like on my swag, and here I even have it for my coffee mug. Is my coffee still warm? No. It's not warm anymore. Oh man, it's cold. But I would have that, and and I was realizing I wasn't being myself. About 3 months earlier, I was asking for feedback for people that was watching, and you don't ever tell your friends and family to subscribe because they're not going to watch you because they can access you, right? But I had a couple of people say, hey, yeah, I do watch your videos. And my buddy, he was like, you know what, Nathan, I can't even watch it because you're opening, hey, what's going on? I can't even remember the opening. And I stopped doing it because he was like, that's not the Nathan I know. That's not who I know who you are. So it just feels like you're fake. So why I keep watching it? So as you would watch my podcast throughout the months, not even the years, because the years it was consistent with the music and everything, but in the months it started to get different, right? And it became to the place where I was like, I'm not even doing that silly intro anymore. I'm not playing any music. And I'm just walking people in to say, hey, look, this is how it's going to be. This is how I'm going to go about it. And I stopped doing a lot of post-production, even though editing is important. I started to change because, like I said, I hadn't warned my mom. And when I realized that place where I lost my mom, I lost that encouragement that I was going to hear from her to say, like, good job. And I needed to create it for myself. And it was never going to happen. And no matter how we played it out, it was never going to happen. So I was like, Nathan, you can do this through YouTube. And you can do it through YouTube, unlike other social media platforms, like people are already on there. So they'll like almost anything. But with YouTube, you have to earn people's respect. And it was so hard because as we were going towards the end of the year, people would seem a little bit more nastier, but it was good for me to understand that, just like that guy that said, child, like some people need to learn how to tell a story. I realized that I'm here trying to cater to everyone around me. And when I saw with that one video I had viral, and then when I was working with my client with their stuff, they were getting traction. I realized that it has nothing to do with me. and I need to earn people's respect. And earning their respect is them watching the video from beginning to end. And this is when people started to comment on my stuff. And I'll just get to, oh my gosh, in the recent months, I've been having people reach out to me directly to say, Nathan, I really appreciate your content, and this is why. Like, I've had a cousin reach out to say, like, oh, you're showing up in my algorithm. And I should back up to say there was one time where we were golfing and I was telling, it was weird when you bring your camera equipment and people are like, oh, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm a YouTuber. Well, my buddy says like, well, he just started. And I was like, how dare you say I just started? I'm like, I've been doing this for a minute, but no, truthfully, I have been, but I took offense to it. And and I was realizing at that time, like, I'm a YouTuber, but now when people say like, Nathan, you're a YouTuber, and now I'm coaching, and people will say, hey, tell me more how you go about doing this. And I immediately am getting them results. And it's the results that has nothing to do about going viral. It's about making the content for their people, but not just for their people, right? Because I say it was about my customers and clients. No, it's about making it so they can tell their story. And their story is important because you have no idea how many other people are sharing similar stories, patterns, behaviors, emotions, problems, challenges. And the one last thing that I will say before I come bring this to a close, because this was really hard, because in my conference I had that I did every year for 5 years, I wasn't able to achieve the success that I wanted. And a lot of it was due to my mom passing. And I didn't give myself a chance to mourn. And this person came to me via email, because I sent out an email saying, hey, look, this is what's going on. A person came back to me and they said, hey, look, I had this person died, this person died, this person died, this person committed suicide. And so that year was a horrible year. So I know exactly where you're at. And I felt so validated. I felt heard. I felt seen. I felt acknowledged. And I felt like I could finally mourn my mom. And December was a extremely hard month for me. And so I share that because in the last few months, probably, I should say not few months, really in the last few weeks, I've been looking at all my data and analytics. And it's interesting to see how many videos I was putting out before I've done this transformation, just posting seriously, intentional, deliberately on YouTube. And pre-YouTube, I was putting out maybe about 35 videos, no more than 45 videos a month. But then I was like, oh, I put out so much content this year, more than any other years. No, I actually had virtual assistants put out content for me 2 years ago. And technically it would be 3 years ago. I was looking at this last, wait, I take that back. It was 2 years ago. And then I was like, oh, it was last year that was a bad year. But the year before that, I started looking at the numbers, because YouTube has a great dashboard of analytics. And I started to look at the content that I'm like, oh, this was horrible. But then I was realizing that even for me, my attitude when I was creating content, it got better, because I was unlocking a creative genius in me that I didn't even know I had. And you probably have it too, right? But you have it locked up and it's confined in a pretty little box, and you're like, I can't open it. And I would have this little, my girl would say, like, why do you do that? And I'm like, I go, I do, because I know once I move forward, there's no going back. And I don't want to stay stuck in that area, but I also know that if I don't do it, then I'm not going to get what I want. And so, like proving to my kids, like, we could go viral, which we did. Telling the story of my mom was pretty significant. But in the last few months, really in the last few weeks, I gotta say, in the last few weeks, seeing the engagement on my channel has really meant the world to me because, like I said, I felt seen because it was about 4 months ago where I had that breakdown. I felt depressed. I felt alone. I felt betrayed. And here's where YouTube, in telling my story, I realized that my story was not the story I was living. I was playing safe this whole time and not being who I was. And I am a believer. I'm a follower. And going back to what my buddy said, like, that's not who I know. That's not the Nathan I like. That's not the Nathan that I grew up with. I had to realize that I was wearing that BU on my shirt, on my chest, on my apparel, and I was scared to be that person. I even wrote a book, Scared to Be You. And this is when I realized in the last few months that I'm going to tell my story. And my story has gotten better. And one of the last videos I put out, and because this actually came in March, I would say last month, this month, but it's last month. And when someone actually stated, he says, brother, I can see that you're doing a better job communicating your ideas. I don't even know who this person is. I don't know their first name, their last name. I don't know where they're at. But when a stranger tells you that you're doing a better job, you know how good that feels? You know how good that feels knowing that you had to completely go through a metamorphosis, because this metamorphosis that you went through require you to change your identity, which also means you had to change your conviction. And that conviction was it was started with my mom dying. And it's not about my mom dying, but it was about staying consistent in this path, this journey that I was like, okay, I said I was going to do it, but not realizing that when you show up in front of that lens to show up to that person it's you that I'm talking to, right? It is being authentic to who I am, because I want to make sure you get something out of it, because I realize that we are so similar in so many ways, but we hide behind this veil because we don't want to get hurt. And that was me. I didn't want to get hurt. But doing this YouTube for a year, I realized that there is pain and growth, but that pain doesn't have to be hurtful in the way you think it needs to be hurtful. There's a sharpening taking place, and doing the YouTube for this last 12 months has blessed me to have so many great opportunities, because my business has changed in a good way. My parenting has changed in a good way. My kids are doing better. My golf game is doing better. My faith is doing so much better. And it all started because I started to tell the story of how I should show up in front of you. And I've been so grateful that you have allowed me to share my stories with you. And you allowed me to grow in front of you. And some of you have been so gracious. And for that, I can't thank you enough. And if you should go on this journey, let me know. I want to be one of your viewers and one of your fans, so I can support you in your endeavors, because this will change you for the better. And don't look at change in a bad way. Look at it as the transformation that you're going to undergo. Because the last thing I will say, it hasn't been just me. Even my clients have seen the transformation within them. Not me saying like, you done this, you changed this. No, they seen it in with them. So I wish you the same transformation, and I wish you nothing but the best. So dream big and Godspeed. Until next time.